So welcome, we'll be starting with our class on teaching and research, and we'll be talking about 25 important questions for today. Now, all those, if you have any queries, any doubts, you can just leave those in the comment. Some of the important topics that I would like you to revise for your last minute is the topics related to exploratory research, action research, ex post facto research. So these are commonly asked questions. A kind of applicative questions are now asked these days. So make sure that you cover all those topics thoroughly. These are indeed very important for your upcoming exam. So again, when it comes to teaching section, I often tell students not to just think from a perspective of a student, but to think from a perspective of being a teacher. So if you consider yourself in place of a teacher, what do you think would be the best solution, would be probably the correct answer when you are trying to mark an answer for your teaching aptitude. So those were some of the general guidelines. Coming on to the questions and the practice session for today, let's start with the very first question. The ex post facto research means, now I am looking for the first correct answer. Anuja, C. So action research is carried out after the incident. That's correct. Okay, so under ex post facto research, what we consider is after the event has happened, we go on to the site and understand about it, think about it, or work about, research on it. That's what is ex post facto research. So Rockstrach has something to say. Yes, please, you can just put that in the comment. A lot of correct answers. Great going. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Now, this is a surprise question looking for the first correct answer for what is the sampling error. And sampling error decreases with, you have the 4 choices given out here. So second question, the answers for the second question, looking for the correct answer. Now, Rockstach has a request. He is feeling very nervous before the exam. Zahid, great. The first correct answer. Okay. So, sampling error decreases with the increase in the sample size, and that's very correct, because in simple terms I can say, let's say this is population and this is the sample. Now, the remaining, what I can say, is a kind of error that's there. Now, what would happen if I increase the sample size? Definitely when I am increasing the sample size, my amount of error or the region of error is decreasing. So, that's how we understand the answer here. So, as the sampling error decreases, we can say it's because of the increase in the sample size that's given there. Now, before I move on to the next question, just addressing to what Rockstats had, just don't feel nervous before the examination. Get going. Don't feel burdened or pressed by thinking that you are not able to answer in the class, or the questions that are coming up appear to be hard. We don't know anything about the paper. Okay, the paper can be very direct from what you have read. So just stay tuned, relax for the last day, and just take your good sleep and go before the examination. Don't worry at all. Okay, so that's the key aspect to understand here. The next question I have here is, what is a research design? Now, coming on to the choices, the last choice is none of these. So, I guess you have the 3 choices here, and the last choice is none of these. Okay, looking for the correct answer for research design. So, for the second answer, just send in your email, the details. Okay, so that was a surprise question. The third question you have, what is a research design? Looking for the correct answer. Great. So, Raki, Himanshi, Anuja, lot of you. Okay, a framework for every stage of collection of data and analysis of data is known as the research design. A kind of very direct question and a kind of simple question that was there. Coming on to the next question. This is again a very important question. Now, I believe a lot of you would get confused with this question. So, looking for the correct answers for question number 4. Question number 4, looking for the correct answers. Read the question very carefully. I am very sure a lot of you would get confused with question number 4. So, it's a kind of systematic identification, location, analysis of documents containing information related to a research problem. No, it's not C. Anuja B, right. So it's review of literature. So basically when we are talking about identification, location and analysis of the documents that have information related to the research, it's review of literature, or what we also call as state of the art. Now I have a kind of quick definitions for you here. So hypothesis, as we know, is a kind of tentative solution for a problem. Research plan is a kind of description which talks about the proposed study that you are trying to do, and research design is the framework under which you are trying to pursue your research. Okay, so that's what's the difference between the given choices. Question number 5, looking for the first correct answer for question number 5. What is phenomenology? Phenomenology, question number 5. B, no. C, Anjali, great. So it's a kind of qualitative research. Phenomenology basically talks about how human beings experience certain thing or experience a certain phenomena, and that's qualitative in dimension. So phenomenological research, sorry, is a qualitative research. So C is the correct answer. Correct, Ritu. Okay, so coming on to the next question here. Which learning theory focuses on the internal states such as motivation, problem solving, decision making, thinking and attention? Now what do you think would be the correct answer here? Again a kind of tricky question. Read the question very carefully. It talks about problem solving, decision making. So I am emphasizing certain words here. Great, Vincent, Padma, so great, Vincent, not Padma. Okay, so you have cognitive theory as the correct answer, because we are talking about understanding, solving the problem and decision making. So all those talk about cognition. Cognition is basically understanding of a phenomena. So you have cognitive theory as the correct answer for this question. Coming on to the next question. Again a kind of very direct question, but kind of students from psychology background would answer it very well. So what's the most appropriate meaning of learning? So what's the definition of learning in psychology is what would be the answer here for 7. Great, Raki. So it's modification of the behavior. So some of the answers are coming really quick. So it's basically learning is defined as modification of the behavior, and that's a kind of very simple or a direct definition that we talk about under psychology. So that's what is learning, and it basically creates a relatively permanent change in a human behavior. Okay. The next question, question number 8. Now this is one of the sayings. The question is, who gave the following sayings? Education is the manifestation of a perfection already in man. Now this is a kind of question that's technically asked, and you have usually 1 to 2 questions like this, which talks about the various schools of thought in education, the various philosophical constructs. So Swami Vivekananda, great. So Shivam, Priya, a lot of you have the correct answer. So the correct answer here is Swami Vivekananda. So these are kind of common sayings that you must be familiar with, and this is a kind of section that you have to just read and revise and learn. There is no other shortcut to it, but yes, there could be 1 or 2 questions from sections like this. The next is, which of the following are not the advantages of secondary data? Now, a very good question, a very interesting question. Again, I would say read the question very carefully before giving the answer. Question number 9, I am waiting for the answers. Now, what's the difference between the primary data and a secondary data is something that's very important. Primary data is something that you collect by yourself. Secondary data is you refer on to the other sources to collect the information. Great, Mohan, Palak and a lot of you, Gaurav. So standardization is the answer here, because secondary data lacks standardization. It's easily accessible, it's immediately available. So that's all correct, because let's say if you are looking for a census data, it would be easily available and accessible to you. But there is lack of standardization that's seen with the secondary data, and that's one of the major limitations of a secondary data. Coming on to the next question, longitudinal approach is related to, again a very tricky question. Read the question very carefully. We talk about 2 types of research approaches. One is the longitudinal approach, and the second is the cross-sectional approach or the cross-sectional research. So here the question says, what is longitudinal research related to? C, great. So Gaurav, Pooja, Jitendra, lot of you coming up with correct answers. Okay, the only thing that was meant to confuse you here was whether we are using the same variables or a different variable. So in the longitudinal research, there is repeated observation of the same variable over a given period of time. So it's basically a kind of temporal study that you try to do, mostly in the case of historical analysis, and it's basically considering the same variable. So C would be the correct answer here. Coming on to the next question, you have a question based on an experiment, and this is where you have to find out the dependent and the independent variable. So looking for the correct answers for question number 11. Question number 11, so you have basically an experiment that is performed on a plant to see how liquid affects the plant growth. So you have to find out each plant has the same amount of soil, same amount of sunlight and the same amount of liquid. In this investigation, what is the independent variable, and it's given that each plant in the experiment is given different type of liquid, and we are trying to find out the growth based on the different amount of liquid that's given. So what is the independent variable? Pankaj, no. Mohan, Pooja, correct. So it's basically the type of the liquid. Type of the liquid is the independent variable, and that's affecting the plant growth. So plant growth becomes here the dependent variable. So plant growth would be dependent on the type of the liquid, and therefore type of the liquid is an independent variable, plant growth is a dependent variable. The next question is, effective teaching is a function of. Now this is a kind of very conventional question usually asked for your examinations. So what do you think is effective communication a function of? Looking for the correct answers for question 12. Question 12, A, correct. So teachers making student learn and understand is the main function of an effective teaching. So let's say if I am teaching here and what I am teaching you are unable to comprehend or understand, then there is no point of that teaching. So effective teaching basically means that students should be able to learn and understand what is being taught. So A is the correct option here. The next question is again from the teaching aptitude, a successful teacher is one who is. Now this is again a kind of tricky question because a lot of you might get confused with the choices, and that usually happens for the teaching aptitude. Seeing the mock papers that the students have given, Shubhangi has a question about difference between okay, explanation of question number 10 again. Okay, let me move on to question number 10. There is a request for explanation of question number 10. Okay, the question number 10 talks about longitudinal approach. Okay, so there are two types of approach, longitudinal approach and cross-sectional approach. Longitudinal approach means you are studying the same variable over a given period of time. So let's say you are studying it today, you are studying it after 10 days, after 20 days and so on. So that's what is longitudinal approach. So it's repeated observation of the, now B and C is the confusing choices here. So what is important is to understand we are taking the same variable into account and we are studying that same variable over a given point of time. Okay, so therefore for question number 10 you have C as the correct option. That's you are understanding the repeated observation of the same variable over a given period of time. Okay, coming on to the next question that was there. Okay, question number 13. So I was looking for answers for question number 13. Question number 13, the correct answer, savvy, correct, right. So A is the correct answer. A successful teacher is one who is compassionate and disciplinary. So let's say if there is a class on 9 o'clock and the teacher does not turn up to 9:30 or 9:15, then you won't say that would be a kind of successful teaching. Again, the teacher has to understand whether the student is able to understand or not, from what kind of background the student is coming, and based on that the teacher should be compassionate enough to help the student work around. So compassionate and disciplinary would be the correct option for question number 13. I had a request I guess from Shubhangi. She was asking about the difference between applied research and action research. So applied research is basically when you are applying the research to some other field. So there could be two types of researches. One could be a kind of theoretical research, that's just talking about, let's say if you are doing a research on science, you are doing kind of research which talks about the existence of bacteria or the existence of virus. It's not applied at all. But on the other hand, there could be a research where you are talking about, let's say, a disease like chikungunya and a treatment for chikungunya. So that would be a kind of applied research where you are trying to work around those bacteria and viruses, and you are trying to see whether what causes these diseases and what is the actual implication that's there. However, under action research, we talk about a kind of quick solution to a problem, and that's what is explained under action research. As I said towards the starting of the lecture, if you have joined later on, so action research, exploratory research, ex post facto research are some of the common ones that that are there. Okay, so make sure you work on those, and as we have already put up here, so all those general questions you can just send them and we would cover them in the doubt resolution session tomorrow. Okay, the next is okay, the next question here is, which of the following method focuses on inductive thinking? Again, a kind of important question here. Shubhangi, environmental section has already been covered. You can just go on to the playlist and check out environment. We have lots and lots of videos on the various protocols, the conventions that have taken place, and the important topics in environment. Okay. Question number 14. No, lot of incorrect answers for question number 14. Okay, so the correct answer here is existential method. Okay, so I guess none of the correct answers could be there. Okay, so the correct answer for question number 14 here is inductive thinking basically focuses on existentially methods focuses on inductive thinking. Under inductive thinking, as we know, we move from a kind of specific concept to a kind of generalized concept. Good, Priyanka. Okay, so ultimately we have a few correct answers out here. The next question here is internal reliability. Now this is again a kind of very interesting and an important question. We have covered internal reliability, the types of reliability and validity in one of the separate lectures. So you can just go there and refer these three classes which are very, very important: reliability, validity and standardized test. So three of those where we have covered these concepts. Now what is internal reliability? I am looking for answers for question number 15. Question number 15. No, D, right, Pooja. Okay, so we have internal reliability basically explains how consistently are all the items in a given scale of a question. So it's basically internal to the concept, and for details, as I said, you can refer the lecture on internal on the reliability and the types of reliability that we have discussed. Okay, the next question here is abstract should include. Now again a kind of confusing question. I request you to read the question very, very carefully before answering it. So what should abstract include from the given information? Looking for answers for question number 16. 16D, great, Priyanka correct. Okay, so Sonali right. So none of these is a part of abstract. So abstract is a kind of quick summary of the complete research. So it shouldn't include any kind of tables, statistical analysis or the list of references. So none of these would be the right answer here. Coming on to the next question, you have a kind of match the following question. So which school of philosophy is related to which method is the question here. Now this is again a kind of very conventional question that's there for your NET examinations. So again, as I said, this is more to revise and remember, less to read and understand. So basically who gave what is something that you have to remember. However, some of those are really interesting, like Aristotle gave the idea of inductive and deductive method, and that's very important and a very basic concept, so you must be aware of it. Then the question method was given by Socrates, self-activity by Pestalozzi and conservational method by Pluto. So those are the correct choices here. So you have A right as the correct answer, Sheikh. So that would be the correct answer for this question, very theoretical question. This is a very interesting question. Read this question very carefully. Again a kind of tricky question. So specifically for reading and teaching and research, don't hurry up with the answer. Seeing the first correct answer, just mark it. I'm giving you a hint for this answer anyways. So just read the question very carefully before answering it. Okay, question number 8, a lot of C, correct. So both brainstorming and buzz group are the correct answer. There is one more question about coming on to a related concept, so I won't explain the terms as of now. Let me go to that question and finally I'll explain it. Okay, so just for now both of those are correct. Okay, coming on to the next question, question number 19, what do you think would be the correct order? The correct order of the arrangements here. Question number 19. So, yes Devan, I would be explaining brainstorming and buzz group in a while. There is one more similar question about to come, so I am just waiting for that, and after that I will just explain the terms, don't worry. Okay, so here you have the first stage would be preparation. After the preparation, you would present the concept, you would bring in a comparison. Yeah, I understand all the options are not visible, so I'm just, you can just stay on to this, I'm just explaining it, okay. So it's basically, first of all, you would prepare it. After preparation, you would present the content, you would bring in a kind of comparison that would be there, then there would be generalization, and finally application of the concept. So that would be the correct order here. So you would prepare, present, compare, generalize, and finally apply the concept, and that would be the correct order. Don't worry if you are not able to see the choices out here. Okay, that's just to help you out anyways. Okay, the question says which of the following is not an objective of research ethics, not an objective of research ethics, and you have the choices up here. So just read the choices for a while. I am waiting for the correct answers here for question number 20. Question number 20, I am waiting for the correct answers. Okay, see, Priya Inuganti. Okay, great. So, the idea is which of the following is a correct way or an objective of research ethics. So, it's definitely to ensure that the research is conducted in such a way that it serves the interest of an individual or a group. It protects the human participation, and it examines the specific research activity. So all of those are correct, but increasing the value of research is not a key aspect of research ethics. Okay, so that's the correct thing that you need to understand here. Again, a very tricky question. Read this question very carefully. Question number 21, looking for the correct answers. Question number 21, looking for the correct answers. B, binary, great. Okay, Sonali and Pooja. Okay, so basically we are talking about using two different values. So when I say two different values, it's binary, 0 or 1, as we understand. If it was two different categories, male, female, young, old, I could say it is dichotomous, and binomial is a kind of distribution. So here the correct answer would be binary. Binary is a subtype of dichotomous. Okay, so since it's asking about two different values, you have to be very particular reading the question. Binomial is not the correct answer, Jitendra. Binomial is a kind of distribution. Okay, so it's not the variable that we talk about. The next question is, why a stressful living results in heart attack is an example of which kind of research? Question number 22, looking for correct answers. Ajay has a question about octal, hexal and decimal system. So, hexadecimal and decimal system. So, we have explained that separately in one of the lectures, Ajay. So, you can just refer that. Question number 22, looking for correct answers. Question number 22, great. Lot of you are putting up A's. So, it's basically a explanatory research. We are trying to explain why a stressful living would lead to or result in heart attacks. So basically explanation of the facts is required, and investigation of a problem rather is required, and therefore it's a kind of explanatory. As I said, explanatory action research, these are very, very important. Cover those very carefully. The next question is, which of the following is a continuous data? Data, again a kind of important question. Every time off and on you have a question, which of the following is a continuous data, discrete data, and so on and so forth. So looking for correct answers for question number 23. Weight of the students, great Priyanka. Okay, so weight of the students is the correct answer, because we are looking about on a kind of continuous parameter. This weight could be 10, 10.1, 10.2, 10.3 and so on. So that's a kind of continuous variable that we understand, and so D is the correct answer here. Next question is an interesting question. Just read this much and then I'll scroll down. So a public opinion poll that compares what portion of males and females say that they would vote for BJP or Congress candidates in the next election is crucially studying the relationship between gender and voting preferences. Now this type of research is known as, question number 24, looking for correct answers. No, no, it's not A, not C. So I am just ignoring out. So ultimately you would be left with the correct answers. Good. So Namrata has B as the option. So it's relational study. We are trying to establish a relation or we are trying to establish a relation between, we can say, two or more variables that are there. So public opinion that compares what proportion of male and female would vote for a BJP or a Congress candidate would be expressing a relationship between the gender and the voting preference, and therefore it's a kind of relational study that's given there. So the correct answer here is relational study. And the last question here, based on which I would explain the terms now. So the terms for the question 18, I guess. Which method is appropriate to discover new ideas, thoughts and responses very quickly? Looking for the correct answer for the last question, and a kind of surprise question, looking for the first correct answer for the last question. A lot of answers. Okay, so I missed who was the first one. Just check out yourself. Okay, so the correct answer here is brainstorming. So brainstorming is the correct answer. Now let me explain what is brainstorming. Brainstorming is basically, now you have the answer here itself, so you know it very well. So basically you have lot of people coming together on one topic, discussing, generating new thoughts, new ideas, and that's what is brainstorming. So let's say on a given problem or a solution, you have n number of ideas that are coming up. Out of those n number of ideas, you select one as the correct one, and that's what is brainstorming. However, we had another term there, that was buzz group. So buzz group is basically a similar discussion, but that occurs in a kind of smaller group, a group of 3 to 5 people, and where you bring in new ideas, you try to work around some issues and bring in a possible solution for a problem. So that's what is buzz group. Buzz groups are usually smaller. So I guess that was clear. Now there was a request on question number 24, what is causal study? So causal is a study which is organized to find out whether one or more variable is there and whether one variable is affecting or causing an effect on the other. So the effect of one variable on the other would be a causal study. Devan has a question about inductive thinking. So inductive we have already explained in one of the lectures. You can refer that, but just a quick view here. So inductive is basically you are trying to move from a specific idea towards a general concept. So that's in very simple ways what is a inductive study. Ajay has a question about fundamental research and applied research. So fundamental research is the basic research. That's exactly what I explained a few minutes ago, where I talked about applied research and action research. So applied research is when you are trying to apply the basic concepts onto some research, but fundamental research or the basic research is mainly in the basic sciences, we can say. So that's what is basic research. But let's say when you are applying it to engineering, medical, it becomes an applied research in very simple terms. Vignesh has a question regarding RBI grade B examination. Yes, I would definitely respond to your email. You have a lot of questions that are coming up, so I would request that all these questions you can just mail up onto contact us at Examrace. We would collect all your doubts and we would have a doubt resolution session tomorrow. I guess that would be much better. that's the key aspect to check here, that we would be covering all the doubts all at one go. So I already have a list of doubts and questions that are there with me. I'll just incorporate these as well and we'll explain that. Ocean has a question about binomial. So binomial is a distribution, it's not a variable. So the question here was talking about variable, and what we are talking about is binomial is a distribution and the question was about variable. So it was dichotomous, and a subtype of dichotomous is what is known as the binary one. Then there is various questions for grounded theory, phenomenological theory. So that's related to psychology. I won't be covering it for paper 1. Then there are questions about sampling and cases. Yes, we have covered sampling and the types of sampling in one of the videos. You can refer that. The next live class is tomorrow at 9:30. We will be taking up questions from polity section. So political science would be the questions there. Statement and analogical problems we have already covered. Ex post facto experimental. So ex post facto is something that happens after the research is done. Okay, so after the incident has happened is what is ex post facto. However, experimental is either it could be in the field or it could be in the laboratory. So basically you are trying to have a control group and experimental group on which you would exactly put your test up to. Then you have a question on continuous variable and others. So the others are known as discrete variables. Continuous variables are ones which have a kind of continuous value. However, discrete variables do not have a continuous value. For example, dichotomous variable is an example of discrete variable. So if I classify into male and female, so it would be either male or female. Okay, there is no continuous value that could be demarcated, but talking about weight would be a kind of continuous value that could be given up. A question is there about the index of thesis and writing format. Yes, definitely we will cover that in one of the classes. I have a lot of questions coming up. Okay, no worries, you can just mail those, and as I promised, we would be having a doubt resolution session. Quasi-experimental I will definitely explain in the doubt resolution. So it's a kind of a little lengthy topic, so we will cover it tomorrow. Okay, any other questions, just email those. There is another question from Tarun. He is asking about, he is doing his masters in Pol Science and appearing for NET. So definitely just prepare the paper 1 carefully and the rest would all be set. Okay. So Tarun is from political science, Ajay. He just marked up. Okay. So just good luck for your exam and stay tuned. We'll be bringing in more session tomorrow. So tomorrow 9:30 we would be having the session on polity, and then we will have one doubt resolution video through which you would be able to have all your doubts cleared. So just email all your questions latest by today evening. All those that we have received by today evening we would be covering in the video. The remaining we won't be able to cover because we have just 2 days in hand. And a very good luck for your examination. Don't feel nervous, stay tuned, take a good sleep before the examination and appear with full concentration. All